You're welcome back to the big issue. We're live on radio 97.3 FM as well. We're also live on CT2 on YouTube, and you can join the discussion via our WhatsApp line 0204447030. Just gone by as a discussion on the good for oil policy. All the issues around it, we'll try to touch on them, and the consensus is that there should be more clarity and transparency on the matters. Now, we are shifting gear. We are moving to the school placement program. Is it a flawed system? I recall in our time, headmasters would go to a particular place, central place. So you choose schools in a particular region. The carts are shared around. If you make the cut, you are choosing, etc. They said, no, that was too manual, and that left room for influence, corruption, etc. And so there was a computerized system which simplified things. You just choose your schools. There was a way it was programmed. If you made the cut, automatically you were sent to the schools. If you couldn't make the cut, you are shifted to your second choice, and that way. So we were a bit happy with it because it took out the human influence. Now we're hearing that human beings have found a way of influencing the computer system. So people now pay a lot of money to get the awards in preferred schools. Now, there's also another leg of the discussion coming from the private schools. I don't know the empirical basis of that, but they say that it appears that WAEC and the computer system, etc., are not finding a way of putting the private schools in a disadvantage. They don't make the grades anymore, and they don't get the schools they choose. We don't know what that is, so we will look at that as well. To join me in the discussion is Kofi Asare, Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Enoch Jetua, who is the Executive Director of the Ghana National Council of Private Schools, Kwesi Kwarteng is spokesperson for the Ministry of Education, and Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I started with you, Kofi. What's your understanding of all these matters of placement, sports being sold out to people, protocol, etc.? Has anything like that come to your notice? Have you had any experience with it? What is your thinking and understanding of what the problem is?
Morning to your audience. I think that every keen and objective observer of the space would admit with me that there's nothing new about school placement being sold by some people. It's been there for about 12 years. I've written and written and written over this issue for years. And so it's no news. Perhaps what is news today is that for typical cases of corruption, it is always difficult to establish for a typical case of corruption that involves bribe giving and then for in place or for an action. It is always difficult to establish the truth in a matter until you're able to get the bribe taker and then connect the bribe to the action for which the bribe was given. And this is what Manasseh and his group did this time around. That they gave a bribe to someone outside the system, and the person was able to change the school of the girl from a brief sectec to infantiman for an amount of 11,500 or so. So, yes, we've actually managed to get evidence that in reality, what we've always known to exist, is real. What is left to ascertain is the dimension, the scope, to what extent the practice is endemic. But at least we know that what we know to exist really does exist. I think that the computerized school placement system obviously was brought on board to replace a human dominated system which we all agreed that was susceptible to corrupt practices and then influence peddling and all that. And so having a system undertake the placement was one way of ensuring that there's very, very little human involvement in the process, little room for influencing and corruption. It's been running for about 15 years. It is normal for systems to undergo review periodically. Okay, because the assumptions that underpin the introduction of the CSSPS were all not entirely true. Majority of them could have been true, but all couldn't have been true. For instance, I keep saying that I have a friend who is a systems engineer in the US, and he keeps telling me that if you digitize a system, anytime you digitize a system, bear in mind that the system itself will not purge, it will not create a clean or environment devoid of corruption. It won't purge the environment or the ecosystem of corruption.
Yeah.
It is the human being that controls the computerized system. The integrity of the human beings that run the system is key, and not the system itself. The system is not an end to itself. It's a means to an end. But majority of whether or not corruption will be reduced, eliminated, or it will increase depends on the human beings that operate the system. So I think that we must take advantage of all these happenings, which I see as symptomatic. These are symptoms. The real problem, the problem is not that someone went to sue the policeman. No, that's not the problem. It's a symptom of a system that we haven't interrogated systematically. Over the years, we've had governments and various genius leadership change the criteria for placement, to continue changing until it becomes more equitable and all that. There was a time we were having 30% protocol for students who were coming from the local community, 18 miles of this, 18 miles radius from the school. Moved to another era where we had limited protocols. Now we have 5% protocol to ministry, and then also 5% to school and all that. It's gone through various reviews. All these reviews are reviews focusing on the criteria for placement. They are not systemic review. I believe that this is an opportunity for us to take a look at the system again and ask ourselves whether in the current form it is serving its purpose. So and I'll conclude by saying this.
Okay.
That every system must have accountability mechanisms, checks and balances. The system as it currently runs for category A schools runs on the basis that only 2 people have access to placement in category A schools, the minister and then the genius director general. I didn't mention the CSSPS coordinator.
So the coordinator himself doesn't have access to the system?
The minister and the genius director general. Since 2018, this has been the case. So
wow.
The issue is that if the 2 highest authorities in the education sector are those that are the only ones that have direct access to the system for placing category A students, who will exercise oversight? Because there must be checks and balances. No one can check the minister because he is the highest checker at that level. So we need to look at the system again and create accountability systems such that the minister will have a basis to come in and exercise oversight on work done by the CSSPS, for which reason the minister cannot be the one. Exactly. It blurs checks and balances.
But the bigger concern really for me, in terms of these 2 persons having the access, is, so if they are the only 2 people having the access, who then is able to make the changes? Because we hear that...
Only the 2 can make the changes. But the fact is that...
So your child is given a certain school, you go to pay, they change it for you. So it means that change is known or should be known just by the 2, or is between the 2 people?
Yes, only the 2 people. But we are talking in technical sense, the 2 people. But in reality, I know that the Free Senior Secretariat, more or less, to a higher extent, exercise the minister's discretion.
Okay.
And then the minister will sign off. So he signs off before the Free Senior Secretariat will do most of those placements. The DG also, I'm not too sure about that, but maybe he will give it to maybe the CSSPS, which is a department under him, or his secretariat. I don't know, but they are the ones who have the password. The point I want to make is that once they have the password, they are held responsible. And the minister rightly said in Manasseh's documentary that the reason why we are only 2 people having access to the password for category A schools is because we know those schools are high stakes. And should there be any systemic error, it should be easy for you to hold someone to account, identify where the fault is coming from. So because we are only two, it is very easy. That's why we agree that only the two of us will have access. So when there's a problem, you go to the two. No one is saying that the minister is the one who sold that change in placement to the lady at Ebri Tech, who successfully paid 11.5 through Manasseh's group and then got a placement at Infantiman. No one is saying that. Because if you understand in reality how the system works, the minister will receive 5%. Let's say a school like PRESEC. PRESEC will admit about 1,500. So 5% will protocol. Okay?
That's 75.
That's 75. So the minister will receive a list of 75 people from PRESEC. These are our protocol guys. Place them. The minister is obliged to do that. That's all. It's because the placement is not based on your results. You are a Ghanaian, your results are correct, everything. They place them. If anyone at PRESEC, and I'm only saying this in hypothetically, if anyone at PRESEC took money from someone and added their children or their wards to the list, the minister may not know. In fact, if I were the minister, I wouldn't know. No one would know. Okay, so it is overly simplistic to assume that the minister knows about how the how money is exchanged hands. No, because he's dealing with protocol allocations from about 70 or so category A schools. 72 category A schools. And if each school is having an average of 1,000 or 1,000 people being admitted, you are talking about close to about 100,000 people. I mean, close to about 1,200 people being admitted. You are talking about close to 12,000 people being given protocol slots. It's not easy to know that. That is the situation we find ourselves in. So for us, the best thing to do is that I know the minister by now would have taken second thoughts or a dim view about his direct involvement in this. And I'm sure the minister will be happy to now sit back and allow the Ghana Education Service, undertake the placement. The DG supervises the computerized school placement secretariat, and then you do it according to the criteria that has been agreed upon. Then the minister comes in to the picture periodically to exercise oversight, ensuring that the placement is going on per the policy. If the minister receives his protocol list, the 5% protocol list for the ministry. So if the minister receives the protocol list from all national level stakeholders, all he has to do is to send the list to the DG, and then it will be done. Because the protocol is not illegal; it is part of the policy. That's all. So I don't think that the minister will be happy to be involved in not that this year, but in future ones, so that his involvement will be at the point of ensuring that there is compliance, there's imbalances within the system, and most importantly, quality assurance. Is upheld.
Very well. Let me come to you, Enoch. So you are with the private schools. What's the concern from your side? Is this situation that we've painted, Kofi has painted? Did you share the same view? What was the concern from your side?
All right. Good morning to your cherished viewers and then the private schools fraternity. It's the same concern that we also share, but on our part, we have some specific issues that we can talk of. We can talk of the general scheme of work that is undermining the educational rights of children in the private education space. And let me take my analysis from that point of the legal basis.
Yes, okay.
The 1992 Constitution, Article 25, Clause 1B, actually enshrines on educational rights for each and every child to be given fair access to, let's say, facilities, and then that of the programs that are being run in the schools. And private schools are also operating within the same mandate. The Article 25, Clause 2 also gives us the right to, let's say, give education to Ghanaian children. And so for that matter, parents who have decided to enroll their children in the private schools are not wrong. It is a constitutional mandate given to an individual to set up schools in Ghana. So in realizing that the stakeholders within the educational fraternity have agreed on how best each and every one will be able to accelerate from one point of educational ladder to another point. That is how you will be able to move from the transitional period between the JHS education to that of the senior high school education. And that is the reason why we write BEC examination. And in fact, when you read from the West African Examination Council, a regulatory document regulating the conduct of BEC 2015, it is very clear that within the eligibility column, you need to have at least been within the sector within 9 years before you can write. Okay. So it's presumed that before you sit as a candidate to write for any exams, the school has really prepared you adequately and you are ready to go through the mill. We have categorized our senior high schools from category A up to category, let's say, E and F, of which the category A schools are reverse schools, of which represent the true nature of identities in Ghana at the international front. When President Kufuor came, decided to add certain numbers. So as we speak now, we have about 72 schools within the 1,000 senior high schools that are classified as category A schools. And before you can get to that school, you need to meet certain merits. Metrics have been set up for you to meet. You cannot just say that I've completed SS and for that matter, I'm going there. So parents who decide or who desire that their children will go to those schools, obviously look for, let's say, schools that can prepare their children foundational ways so that they can get it. And then that's why parents send their children to private schools. Government has realized that, okay, private schools are getting a lot of access. Most of the category A schools facilities are being enjoyed by private schools because of quality education being given at the private education front. And instead of government to actually look at how best to remedy the situation, then government introduces a policy called 30%. You know, when Kofi was speaking, he was saying that there has been a form of review, catchment area, 5% protocols and all that. Government has now decided that if you attend a public school, you have that edge of 30% allocation to category A schools. Okay. So the practical example is that your ward, my ward will sit for exams. Your ward is in the public school, or your ward is in the private school, my ward is in the public school. When they sit for the exams, and they've all chosen to be in, let's say, Yasanto, of which is a category A school, my ward, for being in the public school, will be given advantage. Yes. For
if they got the same grade, your ward will be taken.
Yes.
Because your ward attended a public school.
And even if not the same grade, because of that 30% allocation. So you will realize that majority of the private schools children who have spent time, parents have paid money, and they've gotten what the state is looking for, are being denied the category A schools. And if you ask the government will tell you that we are looking for, let's say, equity and all. But you cannot come out with equity with a certain standard to lower the bar. So what is happening now is that if you look at this placement being sold and all that, it hinges on the fact that the category A schools are having that kind of standard. And the public school allocation given to them, they are not able to meet that. Because, for instance, a school would declare 1,005 allocation. The 30% of it is being given to public schools. And in reality, the results that are coming from the public schools are not meeting those standards. So that kind of 30% allocation will be reserved for market people, so that everybody can go there and buy. And that is what is happening.
So the public schools are unable to meet the 30%?
Because the category A schools are seated on a certain level. They are not just category A school. Before a school is being graded as category A school, there are certain philosophies, certain, let's say, programs that they do, of which you have to get, let's say, 9 1s, 11, let's say 9 1s, 6 1s.
But the 30% allocation to the public schools will seek to lower the grades or the result they get compared to that of the private. So, for example, if the private guy gets 8 1s and the public guy gets maybe just 6 1s, the two of them could go. The cutoff point originally could be 8 ones.
Yes.
But a guy in the public school, because of the 30% allocation, with 6 ones, he could go.
Yeah, but if you have checked the trend very well, you realize that all these guys that were able to go through the system, dubious means to get
they use that 30% allocation.
To buy and get this allocation were coming from private schools. You ask Manas Azuri.
Because they have the money.
Not even in the sense that they have gotten their grade, which obviously is supposed to have been placed them in that school. But because of that barrier, they were not given their category A schools.
Okay.
So therefore, they would just look for means. And obviously, there are locations over there. When you go to the category A schools, the public schools have not been able, because, yes, we have given you 30% allocation. The 30% allocation that has been given to you, you need to meet certain, let's say,
minimum criteria.
And the public schools are not meeting it. But that 30% is there. So therefore, it becomes a business venture for other people. You understand? Yeah. So if you go through the system very well to uphold, or let's say to abolish this kind of canker in our system, that 30% allocation, which obviously is a discriminatory against the children in the private school, supposed to be scrapped out. In that sense, then we will have a fair playground to, let's say, work on. Because we were of the view that if government obviously can come out and give, let's say, 30% allocation to their public schools, then it means that even behind the scenes, the marking scheme could be even different.
How? So that when you are given a private school script, you'll be told that this is a private school, so mark with iron hands.
Because government obviously has accepted the fact that.
But it's not far-fetched. So government will say, okay, you guys marking category, you guys marking private schools.
It's possible.
If the marking scheme, if let's say the pass marking,
it is possible because if you look at
the private guys, make
if you look at the kind of data that we are receiving from our schools, a child will be able to get science 1, RME 1, social studies, which is basically a reading subject 1, RME, which is also 1. But in English, the child will get about 8.
8?
Yes.
Not even 2 or 3.
I'm telling you. So you ask yourself that.
But maybe the English is technical. English, they look at your subject.
No.
Social studies and
we understand it.
This is a 3 religions.
We understand it. We understand that. And even if you also compare that to the kind of data that we have, because the child has been with us for almost 9 years. This child, you can obviously predict that this child is.
Do we have the avenue where you can call for some results and sit on it, or can you call for remark? Is there that avenue?
There is a challenge at the remark session.
So you can't recall a script. And
WAEC in their own regulation stated that you can call for remark within 60 days when the release is given, but the time frame for adjudication and let's say review is not there. The people who panel to do the remark are the same WAEC people. I don't know whether you understand.
I get it, but it is not to, let's say, correct a particular script per se, but it is to make the point you're making. So maybe the person is going to.
But you City TV,
yes.
You are moderating this program. You've done something to me. I'm not happy with it. And I'm calling for a review, or let's say a fair playground for us to discuss it. It is the same City TV people who panel people.
The markers are different from the officials of.
They are all WAEC.
The markers are teachers.
They are all WAEC paid people.
Yes, but they are teachers, and they take up this extra job. And I'm not sure WAEC
what we are trying to say is that
put their neck on the line.
What we are trying to say
for
is that
something.
What we are trying to say is that 1, fairness is not there. If in time. You see, when you ask the same WAEC people, because you apply, whom are you applying to? You apply to WAEC. So it is WAEC that will decide that, okay, this is the time frame that we are going to. And don't forget that we are running this educational transition within a certain period of time. So before a child can go through this system and come out with a remark, let's say, credentials or report, that time period has already elapsed.
Yes.
Because the children on which they've completed the school with that child, they've gone to school.
Yes, so I'm saying that for now, that remarking process may not be to affect the child, because the child is suffered it, is gone to school. But moving forward, you want to correct it So if you call for remark, it may take months. The child will have gone to school. But you have evidence to make your point.
You are
so that in the
looking
following year, I see Kofi shaking his head. We'll come back to that. Let me talk to Kwesi Kwating, who is on the line. And okay, so I hear he's gone off. Franklin is still on. So Franklin, I mean, interesting discussion. I don't know whether you've had any experience yet with the computer placement program. Is it time for us to review it? And what format should the review take?
Well, except what I hear from the news, really, that the system is up for. I mean, the system has challenges, and that people are trying to exploit it. Look, I mean, the only reason why this placement system came about, is simply because people want to get into better schools or the best schools. Shouldn't the policy rather be focused on creating or establishing schools that are almost at par with all these A schools? I mean, I know that will take a while to do, but if there was any conscious effort at ensuring that at least every region has a number of schools that people can say, okay, look, these are schools that we all look up to, or probably making sure that all the other schools are brought up to some appreciable level of, in terms of infrastructure and what have you, teachers, good quality teachers. I'm sure this problem would even fizzle away. I mean, that's not to say that there are no competitive systems in placing people in any part of the world, but where it is being gained, and in this part of our world, only because special attention is focused on a certain category of schools called aid schools. Definitely you have all these challenges coming up one way or the other. I mean, I think it's about time we decided that food decentralization means what exactly it is. That we decentralize, and we shouldn't just let the government be the one dictating which schools are best or not. At least we should encourage private sector people to go into providing good education, like my good friend Enoch and his people are trying to do. They shouldn't be penalized. I mean, they should just ensure that there's a lot more of such schools that people would be willing to have their awards go to. Because come what may, this system definitely is not. I mean, we are trying to make sure we equalize access for everybody, but in doing so, we're actually not ensuring that everybody is getting access, and that's the problem. I think we should invest in ensuring that schools have some appreciable level of quality in terms of teachers and in terms of infrastructure. Otherwise, this problem is not going to go away. I mean, I'm surprised.
That's a bit of long term. I know in President Kufuor's time, he started this thing about taking one school, is it in a district, in a region, some schools, and bringing them up to a certain standard. I don't know how much of a raise those schools have been given. I don't know whether those schools now can be called Category A schools. I'm not sure. But that's the kind of thing that you're talking about. And that takes time to do. That really takes time to do. But we have the traditional schools, the Fancy Pims, the Presex, the Wesley Girls, which are schools a lot of the middle class people want their children to attend. And that is where the problem is. So yes, what you're saying is good. Maybe the two can be worked on, at the same time, I mean, concurrently or simultaneously, so that, these ones will also be growing. I mean, in the next 10 years or so, when there are results and things show that they are indeed now Category A schools, this difficulty will be eased. You disagree?
Well, the point really is that, I mean, we are not expecting pupils to be failing all the time. I mean, with time, people's exams records will be much better. And if they are better, and if they are getting good tuition, assuming they are, and getting within a certain level of infrastructure, then we are going to get a lot more pupils who will be passing and who will then have to go through this very system in order to be placed in very limited Category A schools. My point is, why don't you just keep on, or why don't you expand access, even with the Category A schools? If you want to accommodate quite a lot, then maybe we should focus on expanding access there as well, right? Otherwise, there's no really immediate solution to fixing this. Even if you try using this, if you try making the system very difficult to gain, as I said, a lot more people will be passing anyway. So what happens to the number of schools that everybody wants to get into? Yeah.
Yes, it is a big issue. We are looking at the school placement issues. Earlier in the week, there was a report, an investigative report, which confirmed what many have actually suspected, that there's some exchange of money for placements. I don't know if it's not barter. We just finished a barter discussion on oil, but that is a problem. That is corruption. The other leg of the discussion is that private schools feel hard done by because they say that because of a certain quota system, 30% quota system allocated to the public schools, a lot of their people now suffer, and they even go to the extent of thinking that the marking scheme could be harsher to the private schools. I don't think they have any empirical basis for that, but I would take Kofi Asari's view on that. Kofi, you think it's a far-fetched suggestion to have that, the marking scheme, even for the private schools, could be different compared to the public?
Well, I think that is. I don't think they have any evidence. So that perception is built on suspicion. I won't say mere suspicion, but perhaps suspicion. But I am rather happy to have data that we can scientifically, interrogate. I want to see the private schools undertake a research, for instance, to establish the correlation between the results of their candidates, of their students in Form 3, especially the mock exams that is taken, okay? And then strike a correlation between that and then their BEC performance, okay? And then we will be able to establish the correlation between the two to see the extent to which the mock examination results vary. That can be one. But let me indicate that. Let me talk about this. You see, the 30% allocation to public schools isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
But it appears that in our bid to make the system much more equitable, we are actually discriminating against Ghanaian children. I am the foremost advocate of equitable quality education in this country. I wake up, I walk, I sleep, I eat, I drink, I bath equity in basic education. But you see, in a country where you have 30% of your children attending private schools, where close to 70% of those schools are low-cost private schools, majority of which are schools that are existing in communities that government has been unable to establish public schools in. The reason they are low cost. On what basis do you call a low-cost primary school like a school called ECG in Agbogbloshie, where they pay 2 cedis a day as school fees, where the schooling takes place in the church, where there is no single trained teacher, where the teacher salary is less than 400 Ghana cedis? You want to call that school a private school, and then match that student to the student of Association International School? Is that what you want to do? No. So I am of the view, and USAID did a report in the Northern Region in 2019. In 17 districts in the Northern Region, 64% of private schools were low cost. This is not Accra. It means that even at the district level, many private schools are a matter of necessity because Northern Ghana is one of the most underserved regions in education. The schools are not there. So private schools are existing there to provide an opportunity for children in those communities who unfortunately have education underserved. So how do you treat such students as if they had the choice to attend the low-cost private schools that they attended? You understand? So if you have 30% allocation going against them, then contrary to Article 25 of the Constitution, which says that access to educational opportunities shall not be discriminated against, educational opportunities and facilities should not be on the basis of discrimination, then you are discriminating against children who are attending low-cost private school. In my area where I used to previously live in Oyibi, there's only one public school in Oyibi Presby. All the schools there are private schools. So one of my security men, his child was attending a private school, not because he wanted
them to. Yeah,
no, but the only school there, if you don't get Oyibi Presby, you are not in school.
To work.
The only school there is Oyibi Presby. And it's even running a shift system, morning, afternoon, as of now. So there's no school there. And the classroom is about 83 per class.
Wow.
So that everyone there is looking for a school to enroll their children. And there are low-cost private schools there, where you pay 100, 150, 200 cedis a term school fees. Low cost. Do you want to tell me that you want to apply this 30% protocol to public schools and then disadvantage these students? Because the standards which they are teaching, they are being taught in, they are learning in, is far lower than the standards in the public schools. Far lower. They don't have trained teachers. Because the salaries of their teachers is not more than 500 cedis. But the trained teachers in the public schools are taking averagely 2,000. So we must be sure, we must be careful not to create problems in our bid to solve same. Now, on the issue of the WAEC issue, of WAEC and the remarking, you see, we have been saying every day that our assessment sector is facing a governance crisis. The systems in the assessment sector of our educational sector are not accountable systems. They defy the basic principles in public sector governance. And I'll just go straight to the point. If you go to other countries, OECD countries, education flagships, if you go to a country like the UK, their assessment system has a regulator, just like every country I know. There's always a regulator of the assessment system, the sector. This regulator will set standards for bodies like WAEC, NAPTEX, and all other assessment bodies in Ghana, and then regulate compliance, sanction non-compliance. When a student or a school is aggrieved or feels unfairly treated or marked down in an examination, what do you do in the case of the UK and Wales is that you apply, England and Wales, is that you apply to the schools, the examination board, in this case WAEC. Yeah. WAEC will do the remarking, the WAEC in that country, which is the examining board. If it's Cambridge, Cambridge. If they do the remarking and you are not satisfied about the outcome, you apply to OFQUAL, which is the Office of Qualification and Assessment. OFQUAL is the regulator.
Yeah.
Then they will appoint external reviewers to review the script for you. You understand? That is what exists in every country. In our country,
we just have WAEC.
We have established WAEC to be self-regulatory. So WAEC is accountable to a board, and on the board sits government. The thing is the Director General. Yeah. On the board sits government. Okay, and apart from that, there is no regulatory agency regulating the affairs of not just WAEC but other assessment bodies in Ghana, including Cambridge. Cambridge is in Ghana.
Yeah.
IB, Cambridge, NAPTEX, and all these agencies are undertaking assessment, but there's no regulator. So when a student feels unfairly treated or marked down, and they have to appeal and apply for a review of the appeal, they have to do same to, in the mind of the student, their oppressor. How possible is that? So I will re-emphasize that we need an independent regulator of Ghana's assessment sector space, so that standards, international standards, if you go to WAEC's website, WAEC says that its aim is to undertake examination consistent with the British standards. That's what is written on WAEC's website. So, by getting an external regulator or independent regulator for the assessment sector, it will be empowering WAEC to undertake assessments that are consistent with the British standard, because such accountability mechanisms, such checks and balances that are missing in Ghana's assessment system, but available in the British standards in Australia and all other countries that we seek to match with, will not be available for WAEC. So that everybody will be happy. I'm not saying that WAEC has knocked anyone down, but what I'm saying is that they are not in a position to ensure that there's a fair hearing, because they can't be the referee and be the captain.
Even though the teachers, do I call them contract?
The markers, but they are markers. Okay, but what I'm saying, I didn't say that their markers are not fair.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is that in other jurisdictions, their markers will be the first line to do the first line of reviewers. But if the school or the candidate is still not happy after their markers have done the remarking,
Then they have a place to go.
you have a place to go, which is the regulator, Ofqual, apply to Ofqual. In our case, you have no place to go.
Place to go. You go to WAEC, go back
Yes.
to WAEC.
Now, on the senior high school issue, I believe I agree with Franklin Kujo that yes, middle class, they want their children to go to top schools and all that. The country is growing, the middle class is expanding, so the demand for certain commodities keeps increasing, especially education served, middle to high level education, high class education. And that's what we have in a level of private schools and also category A schools. It's fair. But you see, I am one of those who doesn't entirely believe that establishing a new school and putting in place facilities similar to PRESEC will let someone change their mind.
Yes,
No.
yes. It comes with time.
I was here when President Kufuor started his model school. I was in Chufpraso when Chufpraso Senior High School was built. I think I was part of them. Go and find out those who want to go there. There's everything in the school. There's everything there. Yeah. Even the new Bahama blocks, E blocks.
Yeah, E blocks.
Go to Adenta. There's one there.
Yeah.
It is less than a kilometer from. Let me go to Adenta one first. It's less than a kilometer from Was. It's less than a kilometer from Was. Who will go there when Was is there? Meanwhile, the facilities there, the Was cried, Omunibi.
Yeah.
So it is not the simple situation where you build a school, the facilities, and then I will take my child there because you are calling the school category A school. No. And again, there's a school called St. James in Sunyani. That's the best senior high school in Ghana for the past 10 years.
Yes.
Consistent WASI performance. I'm told that this WASI, there are two boys who featured in the science and math quiz were the two best students.
Wow.
They have that school is the best senior high school in Ghana for the past 10 years. But go to PRESEC. 40,000 people want to enter PRESEC. 40,000 have applied to go to PRESEC this year. By now, go to that school.
Nobody is there.
Nobody wants to go. So you see, what drives the demand for category A is not about facilities. It is the tradition.
The tradition.
Tradition. It is in view of that, because you can build a school similar to Oxford University or University of London. Build it on twice the size of land that Oxford occupies. By the time you finish, the name Oxford missing alone, nobody will go.
Yeah.
So, to cure this, I have recommended this to the Minister of Education. I've had extensive discussion.
Hold on with the recommendation. I'll take a short break.
Okay.
I'll return and then we'll look at the recommendations that Ofia Sari has. We'll hear from from Enoch on whether indeed that correlation or thing that Asari talked about, they've done that. And we hear from Franklin Kujo, so then we can call it a day. This is the big issue. We'll be right back.
It's City on the Go. You don't have to miss any of your favorite television and radio shows on City TV and City FM. Enjoy thrilling content from your world of great television and relevant radio at your convenience. Subscribe to CityTube on YouTube. Turn on your notification button and receive prompts on our live streaming sessions and new content uploads. For easy access to the CityTube page, scan the barcode on your screens. Subscribe to the CityTube page and voila! Unlimited content awaits you. Don't forget to subscribe to CityTube for amazing content from City TV and City FM.
You're welcome back to The Big Issue. We are on 97.3 City FM, obviously on TV, and we're on CityTube on YouTube as well. We're looking at the school placement program. We're asking whether it's a flawed system or not. It's obviously the system requires some changes or some reviews. My guest, Franklin Kujo, Kofi Asari, and Ogjetua, and then Kosi Kwatin, who could not join us, but we're still hoping to have him respond to some of the issues. Yes, Kofi Asari, you're making an interesting point, and you said you had some recommendations for the minister.
Yeah, I believe that one way to reduce the pressure on Category A schools, leading to most of these, corruption issues, is to, instead of building new schools, focus on expanding existing ones.
Those ones which are expandable.
If you go to Infantry, before this government came, Wesley Girls was doing about only 700. It was one of the smallest senior high schools in Ghana. And government expanded it to, I think, about 1,002 or so.
But that will also have an effect on the quality, won't it?
You're not telling me that Wesley Girls is a good school because they are few. You understand?
Yeah.
One
But
of the
number, okay, go ahead.
One of the key ingredients or canons you find in this category A schools is the way they are managed. Is the way they are managed. And so if we agree that the management is what to a higher extent distinguishes them, because they may not have grade A facilities. Some of them are very old schools, not new, they don't have modern facilities. It's because of the way they are managed. If that's the case, then expand the schools so that they can still benefit from that quality management while doubling the size or tripling the size of Butchie under the same management. So build 3 butcheries around Butchie under the same management so that the quality of management will affect, let's say, 15,000 people instead of 5,000 people. Is that like University of London?
Yeah.
You understand? If you do that, you will be tripling the intake into Butchie from, let's say, 1,005 to 4,500
or 5,000.
per stream. But Butchie will be bigger. Same to PSEC. If you can find land, expand PSEC, double or triple PSEC. So you have a situation where our category A schools will be having bigger student populations. Then you can create decentralized management units. You understand? Because the management is there. You can create decentralized management units. Then the school will benefit from the quality management. If you do it that way, if I am applying for my child to go to PSEC, I won't ask you, is the PSEC going
Having a capacity to
the old one? No, the same Legom they're going. Is it the old building at the hotel or no? It is PSEC.
Yeah.
If we,
management.
Yes, if we use this approach for the category A's, we will solve this problem significantly, and then also expand access to the TVET schools. The category A schools in TVET, almost all of them are day schools. Takrady Technical Institute, Tematech, KTI, ATTC. Out of this 3 are virtually day. You understand? If you want to drive more traffic towards this category A school, because people want to go to these schools, expand access by creating accommodation facilities and make them modern and make those schools bigger than they are. ATTC has no accommodation facilities. So people can travel from other regions and come there. So that it reduces the pressure on the lower category schools.
Very well. Let me hear from you. Yes, you said you did some correlation. What did the results say?
Okay, so
Quickly, yes.
When you come to the private schools, before a child will sit for the BEC, we have about 6 mocks, at least, that the child will write. And even relying on the mock that we write together with the government at the district level, you realize that the data that we have received so far proves to the point that private school children, especially mathematics and science and English, are leading. When you can go to the district education office and get the data from. So there's a reliable data that proves the point that we can question the kind of results that WAEC has released towards to our children, because we've been with them for a number of 9 years. and we know their performances. And before the introduction of this 30% allocation, we were not having such challenges. You sit for your exams, you get your marks, and then you go to your category A school or a school of your choice. But when the introduction came in, this policy was introduced, that is where, somewhere 2018, that is where we began experiencing this kind of challenges, and then we have questioned the release of the scripts. Because don't forget that the private schools, they pay for the entry sitting. Before you sit for the BEC, the private schools are being charged. So we've requested for the release of the script, because it is only the release of the script that we can do the analysis from. You've marked someone, you've taken the script, you've just come out with grading systems and other marks. We are not happy with the script. Release the script to us. Therefore, it's not WAEC alone that has that kind of ability to assess exams, because the question or the test items comes with marking schemes. So whoever has gone through, let's say, assessment, preparation and all that, can do the analysis and know that this one the child has passed, this one the child couldn't get the answer. Just give us the list of the scripts together with the raw score, so that we can compare and contrast and know that whatever the data that we are having is filtered or is not, we are not getting the script. So whom should we blame? You understand it? So I side with Kofi when Kofi was saying that the WAEC setup is a referee, a footballer, a linesman, a coach, a keeper, and everything. So when you go to the field, you are just a spectator. You can't say anything. And even if you want to go through that, you want to test it along the side of the court. We have other cases which we can cite, Awuni versus WAEC. The time the case was, let's say, given the verdict, the time has elapsed. Those students couldn't join their counterparts whom they were going through. So if you even read the WAEC, let's say, remarking clauses in their regulation, it's just about 60 days that you can apply. There's no time limit for it to complete. That is the point. So it's a discretionary to them that, okay, this one, we will drag it for 2 years and the child will be sitting home. So we understand the fact that in terms of long-term analysis and long-term, let's say, projections, we can go through that mail and then get a hold of certain documents or data or facts to back it, our allegations.
But look, I will advise you guys to exercise your RTI.
But you are even at the top. And
they are talking about the results.
Yes, okay.
I think you can exercise your RTI.
Yeah, the right to information.
Your RTI rights.
Yes.
And then, I'm sure WAEC should respond to that.
Very well.
Because I don't think that is data subject to data protection.
Yes.
Well,
and it's your own, your students' own.
Exactly.
The students,
Exactly.
Yeah, but
to
get it.
All right. So, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to touch on just a brief one on the low-cost private schools.
Yeah.
Data available, Kofi, is 70% of the 22,000 private schools in Ghana are classified as low-cost private schools from the MIS data, not the data from us. MIS data, Education Management Information Data, 2020. That is why when
that 30% obviously will not be fair on this low-cost.
I'm telling you.
I see. Very well. I think the point is made. Franklin, just 2 seconds. I mean, a lot has been said.
We should avoid gaming in the system and creating opportunities for people to game the system. What we've designed and the protocols and what have you is a perfect opportunity to game the system. I still maintain that we should expand access to whatever category A schools, but crucially decentralize the development of this country and make it easy and make it easy for quality teachers to go to where good schools have been located.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks so much for your time this morning. So that's our show for today. My guests have been Franklin Kuju, just heading President of Imani Africa, Kofi Asara, Executive Director, Africa Education Watch, and Nogjetu, Executive Director, Ghana National Council of Private Schools, and we couldn't have Kwesi Kwarteng. Thanks so much for doing the listening and the viewing. My name is Selom Adonu. Catch you some other time again, or catch you next week, actually, for another exciting edition of the big issue. Have a good afternoon.